One more. Okay. Our struggle is not against the enemies of blood and flesh, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers of this present darkness. That can't be any clearer. If you can underline in your Bible, underline that. Against the spiritual forces in the heavenly places. Our primary battle is not against people, is not against kingdoms, it's not against your next door neighbor, it's not against that one person who you try to share the gospel with and they just don't listen. It's not them, it's the spiritual forces of evil. That is our primary struggle as Christians, or who our struggle is against. This is what we are to take home from this passage. If we ignore that our battles are not fought here in this world, then we miss the point. Now, saying our battle is not of this world means something special. You can't scream and yell and holler and win this war. You don't fight a war in the spiritual place by screaming and yelling and running around. You don't fight it by punching and kicking and trying to beat up something. That doesn't work either. You can't spend all day laying around and going, oh, it's so awful, there's a war going on. It doesn't win it either. It is a spiritual battle and requires spiritual fighting. That is a foreign concept to us. As we think of war, you think of war, the first thing you think of is guys in camos with guns and trenches and stuff. That's what you think of when you think of war, but that's not what this is. This is a spiritual fight. And what does that look like? What does a spiritual fight look like if I asked you? What does it look like to you? What do you think? I've never thought about this before. Bless you. The Bible gives us several clear passages to show us what this unseen battle looks like. It shows us that the attacks of the enemy, what they are, and how he launches his offensive against us. The Bible shows us clearly, it's unmistakable, what the attacks of the enemy are and how he launches his offensive against us. There are multiple ways the devil assaults us, and we'll be glancing at many of them. There's a lot to discuss. The first attack of the enemy is accusation. This is found in the story of Job. I'm just going to go over Job 1 if you want to turn there. A lot of people know all about Job. But we're going to go to Job chapter 1. I'm going to just give you a background real quick. Job, at the beginning of Job, he's got a lot of stuff. He's doing really well. He's got lots of kids. He's got lots of land. He's got lots of stuff. He's got a big house. This guy's got it all going for him. And so it says, that gives you that background, and then it says, one day Satan, with all the other angels of heaven, came to present himself before God. And that's sort of like, what? I thought Satan was in hell, and all the demons were in hell, and then God and angels are in heaven. No, in the spiritual place, stuff moves around like it wants to. So Satan comes up and starts chatting with God. Okay? And God sort of sits there and says, what are you doing here? And Satan says, well, I've just been walking around and seeing the whole world. And God says, well, have you seen my servant Job? Have you seen this guy, Job? He does a really good job. I mean, he follows me, he loves me, he tries to do his best, he tries to take care of his kids, he's a good dad. And then he said, because of that, I've really blessed him. And Satan goes, hold on a second there, God. He says, does Job fear God for nothing? Have you not put a fence around him and his house and all that he has on every side? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land. But stretch out your hand now and touch all that he has, and he will curse you to your face. He says, you've given Job, he's tried to follow you, and you've given him kids, stuff, and houses, and land, and cattle, and sheep, and goats, and chickens, and a 4x4, and a nice new truck, and all this stuff. He says, you've given him all this stuff, why wouldn't he fear you? Why wouldn't he sit there and say, yeah, God, I'm on board with that, home run. But Satan here accuses Job. And that's, okay, everybody, real quick lesson in Hebrew. The name Satan is the Hebrew term for accuser. Hasatan is what it is in Hebrew, and that means the accuser. That's his title in the Old Testament. That's his name, the accuser. Just like quotations around it. Like Wayne Gretzky, what's his nickname? The great one. Thank you. Somebody pays attention to hockey here. The great one. Satan's nickname is the accuser. The devil, the accuser. If he had a little picture. Oh, I wish I had put pictures in of Jafar and the lead singer of Shinedown. I think that guy Satan would look like if he were human. But anyway, his name is the accuser. Satan accuses us and condemns us. He says, look at all that God's done for you. Wouldn't you think you'd want to follow him? It's just, he sits there and he battles you with the stuff and he says, you're not doing enough of this and you're not doing enough of this and you only like God because things are going easy for you right now. And you're only a Christian because your parents were a Christian and because you think it's easy and hunky-dory and fine and peachy-keen. And he throws his accusation at us and he tries to keep us downtrodden under accusation. And saying, no, I'm going to mash you down into a little squash. That's the first attack. The second attack of the enemy is anger. Let me caveat this. Anger in itself is not a bad thing. There are a lot of reasons that you can get angry and justifiably so. I remember one time growing up, my brother Danny, who is now bigger than I am. My brother Danny is just as tall as I am, but he's got about 40 pounds on him. He's just a big guy. But when we were little, I was 4 years older than him, so I was about as tall as I was now, and he was about this tall. So he was in the park, and he got in a fight with some kids. And I said, they're not beating up my little brother, which, that's my job. I beat up my little brother, nobody else does. So I got mad, and I went over to these kids, and I was like, grabbed them, picked them up like this. I really just went up to them and shoved them. I said, hey, you leave my little brother alone. Nobody picks on my little brother. That was a good use of anger, protecting him, saying, no kids are picking on him. I don't care. No, leave him alone. That's anger. But Satan can get us to misuse our anger. Let's look in Ephesians. If you're still in Ephesians, flip back a couple pages to chapter 4. It says, be angry, but do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger, and do not make room for the devil. I think it very interesting that Paul links all these together. Angry, sin, anger, devil. He links all these terms together. The enemy and his forces can twist us into using our anger for sinful ends, because when you get angry, you don't think clearly. When you get mad at somebody, you're not like, what's the rational way to deal with this? Now, I know most of you here are parents. When your kid does something wrong, you're not like, let me analyze this and how best to deal with this. You get mad. You're like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? What in the world would make you want to... I don't have kids, but I've got little brothers and sisters, and they're very similar. What are you doing? Satan will get us to use our anger into ways to cause us to sin, which is why it says here, be angry but do not sin. He can twist us to using our anger for sinful ends. Anger to defend our family is good. Anger to defend our country, that is also good. But you should not be getting angry and screaming and yelling at people for mistakes, for accidents, for things that they can't control. Our anger is good if used in the very small quantity of instances where it's appropriate. Other than that, it's sinful. So, anger is another way that Satan will get a hold of us. Another attack of the enemy, the third one, is intimidation. The enemy intimidates us and keeps us... What's the concept of intimidation? If you're intimidated, what primary emotion are you feeling? Sorry, what? Fear. Yes, afraid. You are feeling afraid. You're feeling fearful. Let's look at a passage that backs us up. 1 Peter 5. Discipline yourselves and keep alert. Like a roaring lion, your adversary, the devil, prowls around looking for someone to devour. Resist him steadfast in your faith, for you know that your brothers and sisters in all the world are undergoing the same kinds of suffering. Now think about this analogy of a roaring lion. How many of you have ever been to a zoo and seen a lion roar? Or heard it while you were there? It's really loud. They're really quite intimidating. But we really don't get the full effect of it. We don't get the full effect because the lion is, we're here. The lion's way over there behind a fence in the ditch, and a whole bunch of other stuff. There's no way he can get at us. He roars and we think, wow, that's really something. Now imagine that the fence and the gully and all that stuff are gone, and he's, right there, and he roars at you. You're probably thinking, kind of scary.